as a writer, I am best known for a book about a boy in a lifeboat with a tiger. To write that book, I had to do a fair bit of research. And something I did that research on gave me an idea that I want to share with you tonight, something I came upon, that might explain why we feel so stressed today, so overwhelmed in our world today. And the concept I discovered in doing my animal research was something called flight distance. Oh, we can put it back. Flight distance is the distance an animal wants to keep with a perceived predator. It's the tipping point where knowledge becomes alarm. I'll give you a concrete example. The flamingo. Flamingos such as you might see in the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. A flamingo is not a very quick flyer. It takes a lot of time to take off. The squawking isn't so beautiful, but you know what a group of flamingos is called in the wild? It's called the flamboyance of flamingos. The flamingo, to take flight, has to not only flap its very long, narrow wings, so they don't have much lift, but also, as you saw, has to run on the water. And this for a good distance before it can start lifting up. That means the flight distance of a flamingo is 250 meters. 250 meters, a quarter of a kilometer. Now you might think that's a lot, but a jaguar at full speed, in a straight line, can hit 80 kilometers an hour. Which means slightly slowed down by the shallow water of a lagoon, a jaguar can cross those 250 meters in about 12 and a half seconds. So a flamingo like that you saw, has 12 and a half seconds to save its life, to stop eating brine shrimp and start flapping its wings and get away the others out of the way and actually take flight. For comparison, just to give you an idea, the American robin, a much, much smaller, nimbler bird, its flight distance is 9 meters, which I figure is probably roughly the width of this stage. Now, Usain Bolt, at full speed in a straight line, could cover 9 meters in less than a second. But that's all right. So long as the American robin has its eyes on Usain Bolt, 1 second is all it needs to save its life. And in the meantime, it will continue trying to, get that juicy larva out of the tree bark. Now, flight distance isn't always about running away or flying away. If an animal were always running away, it couldn't feed itself, it couldn't feed its young, it couldn't live its normal life. Flight distance is about compromise. It's about balancing need with danger. So brine shrimp for the flamingo, jaguar. Or juicy larva, Usain Bolt for the American robin. It's always a question of compromise. And most every animal in the wild has some sense of flight distance. Some gauge it with their sight, some with their hearing, some with their smelling. Each one has its advantages and disadvantages. Now, let's take that flamingo again. Let's say, because we love flamingos, we love our flamboyances of flamingos, and we don't want to see them get eaten by jaguars, and we have the technology, we bionically enhance a flamingo's sense perception. We give it bionic eyes, bionic ears, bionic beak. And now our flamingo can detect jaguars 1,000 meters away, 4 times the distance. That, to make the math clear for you, pi r squared is a circle 16 times bigger than the original circle. How do you think that flamingo would feel? It would die of stress. Why? Because its fear instinct would constantly be triggered, but for no purpose. A flamingo does not need to know that there's a jaguar, 800 meters in that direction, 500 meters in that direction, and 2 jaguars, a mother and a hungry cub, 350 meters in that direction. It is unnecessary knowledge, and yet highly stressful, because the flamingo is inherently afraid of a jaguar. It's inherently afraid of a jaguar. Facing that level of stress, it would eventually stop eating, grow weak, wither away, and die. Now, why am I telling you this? Is this just some sort of nice little animal anecdote about the animal kingdom? How does it apply to us? Do we have a sense of flight distance? Well, we used to, when we lived in nature. Hunters of old, with their weapons, would know, for example, how close they could get to a bear near a stream teeming with fish. They knew how close they could get to the predators around them, how far they should stay, on balance. Always there was safety in numbers, and always, once again, it was a question of compromise, of balancing risk with need. Fish, bear, fish, bear. Okay, but you might think, well, that's great, but we don't live in nature anymore. We don't live surrounded by jaguars and bears. We put them in our cages in our zoos, so that's a relic of the past. We left our flight distance in the forest long ago. Well, no, we didn't. It's just that the predators have changed. We know, for example, where to stand in relation to a moving car. We know when we'll risk stepping in front of one to cross the road. Well, our calculation will take into account the speed of the car and its distance from us. And if there's a steady stream of traffic, we will know when to wait and when to go. We'll wait for the green light, or we'll look for an underpass, or a footbridge. And if we're really in a rush, then we will risk it. We will risk it. We will risk stepping in that traffic, ready to retreat, ready to run. I'm sure like a lot of you kids do in front of this school every day, crossing Clarence. You will take that risk. Oh yeah, the other examples. You might think that's the only one. You're a little kid at recess. You're having fun. The bully appears. The bully's been tormenting you all year long. What do? You move away. You play around the corner. Or maybe you play near the playground supervisor. Another example. You're a grown-up. You're out on the town. It's late at night. You're in a part of town you don't know. You're walking in the street. Ahead of you, two sketchy guys appear. You cross the street. If those two sketchy-looking guys also cross the street, you start panicking. You start panicking. That is flight distance in operation with human beings. Now, I want you to see how the danger signal is triggered in flight distance. In each case, you perceive the danger in real time, in surroundings that are immediate. All of your senses, sight, hearing, perhaps smell, perhaps even feeling, in tune with the moment and perceiving right away what is happening to you. So in other words, you see, you hear, and immediately adrenaline floods your body, your heart starts beating, your breathing gets faster, your muscles tense, and you act without hesitation to save your life. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how we were designed. And I want to submit to you tonight that we no longer live the way we were designed. We no longer live like that flamingo in the wild, safe within its radius of 250 meters, content within its natural flight distance. Rather, we are like that bionic flamingo. Our fear instinct is constantly being triggered. Ping, ping, ping goes the radar in our head. Danger, danger, danger. Fear, 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 fear. What am I talking about? I'm talking about an earthquake on a Greek island, a ferry that capsizes in Bangladesh, a violent crackdown in Iran or China, a tsunami in Thailand, a mass murder in Norway or the United States, a crazy election result in the United States. In fact, all politics in the United States right now. An actor who kills someone on a movie set. The list goes on and on and on. These are events that you've heard about. You may even feel that you've seen them, but you didn't really see them. Rather, they were brought to you, edited, packaged, manipulated by technology, by the internet, by social media, by television, by radio, on your phone, coming from a distance way beyond what you can naturally perceive. And we're not designed for that. We are not designed to receive what comes from beyond our natural sense perception. And yet, the fear comes through. Bing, bing, bing. Fear, fear, fear. Danger, danger, danger. Now, what are we supposed to do about that? Disconnect? Go analog? Put our heads in the sand? No. We may do that for a brief moment, but frankly, no one wants to live under a rock, right? We're wired up to our eyeballs, and that is not going to change. Instead, when I receive information that I'm not biologically designed to process by technology, I remind myself of my natural flight distance. I try to separate what is true and immediate, right around me, that I'm perceiving in real time, with what comes from afar, that is no doubt true, but about which I can do nothing. Because after all, what can you do about a tsunami in Thailand? About a violent crackdown in China? What can you do? So when my radar is going crazy in my head, I remind myself of my natural flight distance, and I take a deep breath. Thank you.